Welcome to the About Time Clock Manager tutorial. The first thing we'll review is opening the program. If you turn on your iPad, look for this icon right here, the About Time icon. If you touch it with your finger, the program opens up and it's ready to go. Each morning, before you clock yourself or any employees in, you should always receive data, which will give you any new cost codes or employees downloaded to your iPad. So the first thing you do in the morning before you start, receive data, you go to the menu button, you go to the option that says receive data, and as you can see, it receives all of the new employees and jobs and cost codes that have been added since the last time you did a receive data. Next thing you want to do as a clock manager is to clock in using your employee code. If it's a 4-digit code, you must put a 0 in front of it. When you put in your Clock Manager employee code, you come to the Clock Manager menu. This is an important menu to remember, as there are several things as Clock Manager that you will do from this menu. First thing you do each morning, you want to clock in. So we'll click the clock in or out option. We'll touch that with your finger. Once you do that, center your face in the camera, touch the in button. Now as Clock Manager, you will have to choose your cost code to work on each day. The easiest way to do that, and throughout About Time, this is the easiest way to select items. The top bar with the little magnifying glass is called the search bar. It's a smart search bar, meaning that you start typing any part of what you're looking for. For example, I'm supervision, so I type SUP. Notice that came right to the top of the list. It eliminated anything that did not have SUP in it. So to clock in, I just touch that code I want, L10, with my finger. I accept that, as it shows my name, my location, which is the job in About Time, and the task, which is the cost code in About Time. I touch accept and OK, and I'm clocked in. Now let's talk about another function of the Clock Manager menu. To get to that again, we type in our Clock Manager employee code. And let's work with Location Manager. Location Manager allows you to change the job that your clock is going to have employees clock in on. So let's go through that. Let's touch Location Manager. As you can see, this clock is set currently to 2560001, the New Orleans Airport job. If that is the job that I wanted employees to clock into, I would do nothing. I could just touch the back button, which would take me back to the Clock Manager screen. Okay. If I was working on a job or a location, let's say that had, several jobs on there, okay, and you had groups of employees that you needed to clock on to different jobs, what you do is you would go to Location Manager and you'd set the location or the job to the first one you want employees to clock in on. You'd have that group of employees clock in. Then you'd come, for example, and do the next group on a different job. You'd go to Location Manager, set location. Again, in the search bar with the magnifying glass and Smart Search, start typing the name of another job. And as we can see in the other locations, it brings up, I typed DAVE, so it brought that up as the first job. These are recent ones. It'll, makes it easy. They're kind of already there before you even start searching. But anyway, let's say I had 3 more employees I wanted to clock into the Dave & Buster's job. So you touch that job with your finger. At that point, your clock is ready, and anybody that clocks in on it while this location or job is set to this is going to be coded to that job. Okay, so let's go back at this point to the main menu. And now let's talk about what field employees have to do to clock in each day. So at this point, let's touch main screen at the bottom, and that will bring us back to the main screen with the numbers to clock in on. So I'm going to do a couple of sample employees that we've set up. So the first employee comes up, he types in his 5-digit employee code. At that point, he centers his face, he touches in, clicks accept. Now notice here, when you clocked in, you were required as clock manager to code that record. Field employees that aren't clock managers don't have to do that. You're going to code that later. So all he has to do, or she, is accept, say OK. Next employee walks up, centers his face, says in, accept, OK. That one's done. Next employee walks up, centers their face, clicks in, accept, OK. At that point, 3 employees just clocked in, and they're done basically with the clock in process. So once all employees have clocked in, the next task of the day as clock manager will be for you to code those employees for their task or cost code they're going to work on for that day. So to do that, once again, you put in your clock manager employee code, and we come to the clock manager screen. Where you manage the records or code the records, it's kind of self-explanatory, luckily. Records Manager. So let's touch Records Manager. When you want to code records, you choose the Spot Check menu. Now there you can see my clock in as Clock Manager. If I touch that, notice 2 things happen. At the top, it'll show you the location and task I'm clocked in on or coded to, if that's the case. It also puts a blue check mark at the side of my name, and that means if it has a blue check mark there, you're ready to take some action on any employee that has a blue check mark. Now the action we're going to take, naturally you'll see soon, is to code the record. So I'm already coded, so I'm going to touch me and toggle off. Notice that when I touch the record here, it toggles on when I touch it. I can now see the coding and the blue check mark. Want to get rid of that, I touch it again, it toggles off. That works with any record. So now let's say I want to code the first guy here, test 1, to a cost code, and I want to code the other 2 guys or gals, 2 and 3, to a different one. Well, here's how that would work. You touch the employee you want to code, let's say 1. Notice that there's a location, but the task says in. In means that you have not given them a cost code yet. So that's the 1 employee. Notice he has a blue check mark next to him. I'm ready to take action on any employee with a blue check mark. In this case, it's only 1. So now I will touch the actions button. What do I want to do? I want to change the task. The task says in. That's not an acceptable cost code. We'll touch change task. At that point, I can search for the code that I want to put that person on. So let's just say that I want to put them on shop spiral labor. So at that point, I would just touch that code. Again, I use Smart Search, started typing part of that name. When I touch that with my finger, that employee is coded. Notice the blue check mark went away. That employee is no longer selected. Let's select him. Now you can see that he has that cost code. He is now selected for action. So since he's coded, I don't want to perform any more action. I touch that again, check mark goes away. Now I want to code the next 2 people. I touched each of them. Notice that now they both have the blue check mark. Blue check mark means that's who I want to take action on. Let's touch the actions button, change task, and on them, I want to assign them to plumbing. So I touch the search bar with the magnifying glass, start typing start typing plumbing. There it is. And this list could be thousands of entries long, right? It's it's smart enough to search and get rid of any entry and only show you the ones that have the letters you're typing. So if I touch that, notice that the employees are now no longer highlighted, but if I touch one of them, I can see he's on plumbing labor. Okay, if I touch another one, notice that they're both highlighted. So at that point, you don't know which employee. My point there is that if you want to look at how an employee is coded, make sure that's the only employee that you have a blue check mark next to here, right? Okay, what's going on here is we're toggling on and off. Notice that test one is highlighted, doesn't have a blue check mark. If I touch it, it's toggled on to that employee. Okay, I'm seeing his data. If I touch it again, it's toggled off. There's no blue check mark, you can't see the data. If I touch employee two, now he has a blue check mark. I can see that employee's coding data at the top. If I touch it again, it toggles off and I can no longer see it, even though it's highlighted gray. A little bit confusing, confused me, but touch one employee at a time to see their coding. Now, what you want to do, say you have a bunch of employees here, you're going to want to go through the exercise and make sure that you've coded each employee before you sync, okay, or send data. Because once you send the data, these employees will no longer be here for you to code. So it's very important that you know that you've assigned all the cost codes to the employees before you send data. Now here's a good spot to point out something that may occasionally happen. Let's say, for example, you have your employees in here, you're trying to code them. When you go to Actions, Change Task, you search, and the cost code you're looking for, steel, is not on your iPad. Well, that's probably because it hasn't been set up in Penta yet. So that, will occasionally happen with a new cost code. Your supervision will tell you, hey, use this cost code today. Well, if it's not there, the first thing you need to do is contact your project administrator. Contact your PA, say, hey, this code is not in. What they will do is they will set it up in Penta and they will alert you when it's ready. Now, remember what we just said. If you do a send data, the records are going to be gone. So that's why it's important that you understand the difference between send data and receive data. So if that were the case, what I'd do is I'd go back, I would go to the main screen. Let's say my, steel wasn't in there. I called my PA set up the steel code, said, hey, it's ready. I'll set it up in Penta. To get that code to your iPad, you touch menu, you touch only receive data. And what that's going to do is only get new data, and your employees are still going to be on your iPad for coding. Okay? So again, put in your clock manager employee code, get to records manager, spot check where we code employees. And now, if the code had been set up, you'll be able to go and select an employee or employees. You can do more than one at a time. Say actions, change task, and search for the code that was added. Okay. Now, let's say these are our only employees and we want to make sure that we coded them all right. So I'll touch on one. There's test one, he's coded. Test two, he's coded. Test three doesn't appear like they're coded. So what is it trying to tell me there? I'm going to toggle off these guys, touch test three. He's in fact coded. So what I want to prove to you there is when you check, toggle an employee off to make sure you only have one blue check mark at a time. There's employee one. Let me toggle him off. Let me touch two. I can see his code. Toggle him off. I can touch three. I can see his code. Toggle him off. I can touch four. I can see the code. Toggle him off. At this point, you're ready to send your data to the About Time Control Center, which is what your project administrator uses to get your records interfaced directly into Penta for payroll to be produced. So to do that, again, main screen, menu, send data. Once I say send data, that's why it asks to make sure that you're ready to send, because once you send it, you can no longer take action on any record. So at this point, you should have coded all of your records. You checked them. You're ready to sync all. You want to send that data? Yes. At that point, it sends the data to the About Time Control Center. So now we're at a